The orbital platform above Tau Ceti Prime shook like it had been punched by a god. Lights flickered. Sirens wailed. Steel groaned. Commander Elias Wren stood rigid at the viewport, his gloved hands clenched behind his back, watching debris drift past like confetti at a funeral. Outside, the Centauri Dominion's dreadnoughts burned through the silence, black spears slicing the void, carving their warning into the vacuum. They had arrived without transmission. No demands. No warning. Just a message carved into the side of the fallen relay station. Compliance or extinction. Commander, came Lieutenant Juno's voice over comms, tight with tension. They've disabled all outbound comms. Jammed across civilian and military bands. How long until they breach the inner ring? 10 minutes. Maybe less. Wren didn't nod. Didn't blink. He studied the Centauri vessels, sleek, obsidian, surrounded by fields of seething static. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here to end something. Tau Ceti Prime was one of the oldest human colonies outside Sol, lush, stable, and deliberately peaceful. Its defense force was minimal by design. Humanity had spent the last 50 years disarming, healing, proving it didn't need to fight to be respected. The galaxy nodded, smiled, and waited. The Centauri didn't smile. They had war bred for 1,000 generations on a world of poison and glass storms. Every other race bent the knee or bled out. Now they'd come to test the species that refused both. Wren activated the emergency holo console. A single line glowed red. Authorization, Protocol Helix 0. His finger hovered. For a heartbeat, the room held its breath with him. Once he touched that trigger, it would send the signal back to Earth. To the vaults. To the places buried beneath dust and denial. It would wake what humanity had buried to become better. We're not ready, Juno said quietly over his shoulder. This isn't what we. They left us no line to talk through. Wren cut her off, gaze still locked on the enemy. Only one left to draw. He pressed it. On Earth, in a bunker carved deep beneath Antarctica's ice shelf, alarms lit the dark. A woman with silver hair, skin lined like cracked porcelain, opened her eyes for the first time in 17 years. Dr. Serah Vale. Architect of the old war machines. The one who shut them down when Earth swore it would never make gods again. She exhaled slowly and whispered to the empty room. You made it worse by letting us forget. In orbit, the Centauri began landing. They came without armor. They didn't need it. The average Centauri soldier was 2 meters tall, plated in carbon-weaved dermis, with a secondary heart to fuel muscle bursts that snapped bone like twigs. Their voices were sonar pulses. Their logic, perfect efficiency. And yet, when they breached Platform R9's outer ring, they didn't find resistance. They found silence. Until the inner gates slid open. And a figure stepped out. Elias Wren. Unarmed. Unarmored. He stared at the Centauri vanguard with an expression that wasn't defiance. It was disappointment. I offered peace, he said flatly. The lead Centauri scanned him with a hum that resembled laughter. No war machine. No army. No chance. Wren tilted his head. Wrong. You just gave us permission. The walls behind him peeled open. And humanity's oldest fear walked out. They weren't soldiers. They weren't AI. They were Vault-born, the last remnants of Helix 0, the Terran protocol that bred a war cast using ancient DNA signatures dating back to Earth's bloodiest epochs. Their eyes were human. Everything else was myth. 7 of them stood behind Wren. Silent. Motionless. One wore ceremonial bone plate over synthetic flesh. Another had forearms corded with artificial muscle weaves, fingers twitching like they remembered every battle they were born for. The Centauri paused. Not from fear. From confusion. Until the first Vault-born moved. The fight lasted 37 seconds. 6 Centauri units dead. The 7th torn in half before it could even alert the others. 1 Vault-born was wounded. Minor. Juno watched from a secure feed, her hands trembling. What are they? She whispered. Wren's voice came through calmly. We don't have a word for them anymore. That's the problem. Elsewhere, across neutral space, hidden Centauri observers recorded the footage. It reached their high command within minutes. Their strategist council viewed it in silence. Watched it 3 times. Then asked quietly, "They bred gods?" No one answered. Because the footage spoke louder. Earth's skies stayed clear. No warship launched. No planet killer deployed. But across the stars, every listening race received the same signal, bounced from old Terran satellites once thought long defunct. A single phrase. "Requesting diplomatic talks." And beneath it, "Helix Zero re-engaged." The galaxy stirred. Some dismissed it. Others laughed. But the old ones, the civilizations who had seen the first Terran wars, didn't smile. They locked borders. They updated treaties. And they remembered what happened the last time humans stopped trying to be better. Because when humans choose war, the stars remember who taught them fear. The Centauri didn't retreat. They adapted. Within 24 hours of their failed assault on Tau Ceti Prime's orbital platform, they launched a second wave. No diplomacy. No pause. Just mass. Drones by the millions. Orbital silencers. A carrier engineered from the stripped bones of a dead star. They weren't coming for a planet. They were coming for an example. Commander Admiral Wren stood before the war table aboard the TSS Veil, a stealth command ship cloaked beneath the planet's electromagnetic veil. The map flickered with crimson signals, enemy signatures expanding like infection. "Estimate time to planetary breach?" he asked. Lieutenant Juno replied, 9 hours until full atmospheric entry. Ground resistance can't hold without reinforcements." Wren nodded slowly. "Deploy the Vaultborn." She hesitated. "Only 2 teams are ready. The others are still being thawed." "Then tell them to hurry. And patch me through to Earth." Juno raised an eyebrow. "They said no transmissions." "Patch me through anyway." Dr. Serah Vale's face appeared on the hollow, deep lines around her eyes, voice ragged. "Elias. Serah. You said Helix Zero would only be used once. It was supposed to be a bluff." He didn't respond. "Just let the silence hang." She continued, "What you're asking will put us on every watch list in the galaxy. We're not just waking soldiers. We're waking history." "They already crossed the line," he said. "I'm not asking permission. I'm asking how long we have until full activation." Serah looked down. Whispered, 48 hours. "We have 9. The Vaultborn hit the surface first. 5 of them. They didn't drop with pods. They walked from orbit, skin sheathed in reentry plating, fire blooming around them like falling stars. The Centauri ground forces expected infantry, artillery, resistance. What they found instead was speed. The first Vaultborn moved too fast to track. By the time they raised their weapons, he had torn through 12 command units. Another followed, dragging a kinetic lance longer than his own body, spinning it in wide, deliberate arcs that shattered drone lines. They didn't speak. They didn't broadcast. They just dismantled. One Centauri tactician, hardened, augmented, bred for precision, watched the footage in real time and felt something unfamiliar claw into her chest. She didn't understand the Vaultborn's weapons. Not the material. Not the method. It wasn't tech. It was intent. High above, in the Veil's command center, Juno stared at the kill readout. She turned to Wren, voice low. "They're cleaning the battlefield. It's not war to them," he said. "What is it then?" "A return." Far below, in the ravaged jungle outskirts of Colony Sector 12, the third Vaultborn knelt beside a Terran medic. The young man had been crushed by debris, legs mangled. His breathing stuttered. He looked up at the towering figure, glowing veins along obsidian-scarred arms, mouth sealed beneath a reinforced plate. "Are you human?" The Vaultborn didn't answer. Just laid a hand over the medic's chest. A soft pulse of gold flickered. The man's pain dulled. Breath steadied. The Vaultborn stood. Then disappeared into the dust. Earth's political arm, the Council of Seven, met in emergency session inside the Geneva Array, an orbital lattice of steel and glass floating over the North Atlantic. They watched the same feeds. Some were horrified. Others impressed. "We unleashed what we buried," said Chancellor Darrow of New Tianjin. "And they're not asking us for orders." Another, Senator Ryle, spoke. "They're not following orders at all. They're following instinct." The youngest member, Cara Jean, leaned forward. "Then we either bring them in line," she said, "or they'll win a war we won't survive the consequences of." At the battle's edge, Volborn Unit 7, designation, Calder, stood atop the wreckage of a downed Sethari walker, his left arm dangling useless from a plasma gash. Still, his eyes burned. Still, he stood. He spoke for the first time since awakening. "Is this what we are again?" Another Voltborn beside him didn't answer. Just watched as Sethari reinforcements descended in waves. Calder clenched his working hand. "We buried ourselves for a reason." Meanwhile, in a Sethari fleet relay chamber 5 systems away, Admiral Threx stood before a display, blood leaking from one ear after watching a playback of Calder's last engagement. A junior officer approached. "The humans, they don't deploy like other species. They bleed on command. They weaponize desperation." Threx turned slowly. And for the first time, said aloud what no Sethari had dared voice in centuries. "We didn't trigger their military." He paused. "We triggered their memory." Commander Wren received a secure ping. "Line open." Serah Vale, voice tight. "The other Voltborn are waking up. Faster than we thought. They're talking. Not just mission code. Talking." He raised a brow. "About what?" Her eyes flicked down. "Regret." Back in the field, Calder stood in the ruins of Sector 12. The jungle around him had gone quiet. Sethari bodies. Burning drones. Broken air. He reached down, picking up the cracked insignia of a fallen Terran corporal. Wiped the blood. Pinned it to his chest. A voice crackled in his earpiece. "Junos. We have new orders." He tapped his calm. "Then let's finish what they started." Calder stood at the edge of the blast crater, boots sinking slightly into scorched soil. Smoke curled around him like the fingers of something ancient, reaching, remembering. Below, remnants of the Sethari command structure flickered with dying energy. Glass walls cracked, pulsing red at irregular intervals. He hadn't moved in 5 minutes. Not since the voice came back online. "You were supposed to be extinct." It was deep. Distant. Not through comms. Not even tech. Inside him. He turned slowly, as if the sky itself had spoken. Volborn Unit 1, designation, Calder, reached to his side and drew the shard blade embedded into his armor. Behind him, a whisper of footsteps. 2 more Volborn emerged from the ash, Unit 3, Hira, and Unit 9, Desmond. They felt it too. High above, on the TSS Vale, Wren watched the satellite feed through narrowed eyes. "There's something under the crater," Juno said. "Sethari signatures are folding. Like they've activated a core mind." "A hive AI?" "No," she whispered. "Not digital. Something older. Analog thought system. Biological relay." Wren exhaled. "They're waking something up to match us." The Sethari had never needed gods. They were bred to be unstoppable, razor-spined and patient. They'd seen empires burn, and they never once blinked. But humanity had touched a chord they didn't anticipate. Emotion. Purpose outside of conquest. The Voltborn were not just soldiers. They were shame incarnate. Human history in the shape of walking consequence. So the Sethari went backwards. To what they buried before they learned restraint. In the crater's center, black stone began to move. It didn't rise, it unfolded. The air dropped 10 degrees. Calder raised his blade. Desmond stepped forward, confused. What is? The sound cut him off. A low, thudding hum that vibrated not in ears, but in memory. Calder's voice tight. Step back. Inside the Vale's war chamber, Dr. Serah Vale burst onto the bridge, frost still clinging to her coat. She'd come directly from Cryo Sector 4. I saw it, she said. The thing they just triggered. It's a biosentient echo construct. English, Wren snapped. She grabbed a pad, pulled up schematics older than the Terran archives themselves. They're resurrecting a war form grown from battlefield trauma. Literally shaped from pain. We found rumors of it centuries ago. Setari priests called it the memory of agony. Juno looked up. What's it do? Serah swallowed. It fights what breaks their logic. Emotion. Choice. Humanity. On the surface, the sky split open, not from weapons, but sheer presence. The thing that emerged from the stone wasn't enormous. It wasn't monstrous. It was familiar. A humanoid form. Too perfect. Too still. Skin like charred obsidian, eyes burning faintly with blue flame. Calder's hand trembled. Not from fear. From recognition. I saw one of these, he said quietly. Before we were frozen. When Earth was still trying to hide us. They brought it in on a stasis field, then sealed it in a black vault. Hera whispered. What happened? They buried it. The echo construct moved fast. It didn't run. It repositioned. One moment, 20 meters away. The next, Desmond was gone, just a smear of blood in the air. Hera screamed. Calder didn't. He moved. Blade out. Dodge right. Twist low. He wasn't fighting an enemy. He was fighting a reflection of everything the Vaultborn were designed to suppress. And it was better. Smarter. Every slash it learned. Every move it predicted. Calder's shoulder cracked under a blow he didn't see coming. He hit the dirt hard, rolled, and came up spitting blood. Fall back! Hera shouted. Calder! He ignored her. The only way to beat this, he muttered, is to do what it can't. Juno watched in horror. He's losing. No, Serah said. He's adapting. Calder dropped his blade. Hera froze. What the hell are you? Calder removed his neurorestraint, the chip embedded in every Vaultborn to prevent full emotional sync. The one thing that kept them stable. He tore it out with his fingers. And screamed. To human ears, it would have been pain. But to the construct, it was poison. It stumbled. Calder charged. No finesse. No pattern. Only rage. The kind born from every loss Earth pretended to forget. They hit the ground together. Metal screamed. Bones snapped. Calder didn't stop. He tore open the construct's faceplate and shoved the broken restraint chip directly into its core. Feel it, he hissed. Feel what you tried to erase. The construct spasmed. Blue light turned red. And then, nothing. It went still. Then shattered like ash. Calder dropped to one knee, chest heaving. His body was broken in 5 places. But his voice was clear. We adapt, he whispered. Above, in orbit, Wren stood beside Serah at the main viewport. They'll build more, he said. Yes. They'll make worse. She nodded. Because now they know what we really are. Wren turned to her. Then we show them what we choose to be next. Across the galaxy, species once neutral turned their eyes back to Earth. Some rearmed. Some dug bunkers. Some began diplomatic overtures cloaked in trade. Because even without fleet movements, even without threats, the stars whispered the same words. The humans are changing again. And this time, they were doing it on purpose. The Kyrax Senate gathered in silence, deep within their obsidian citadel orbiting Theta Prime. Around them hovered hollow feeds of the incident at Setari Crater. Replay loops of Calder's final strike, bare hands, bloodied armor, and something far older in his scream than flesh or bone froze mid-frame. "He should not have survived," murmured Chancellor Vackrell, voice a cold rasp. "No," said another. "But that is not the question." "What is the question?" "When did the humans stop being predictable?" On Earth's exolunar fortress Fort Halberd, Admiral Wren stood before the Global Assembly. His image, projected in hundreds of languages across Allied systems, remained calm. Clean lines, uniform crisp, expression unreadable. "The Centauri have withdrawn." "But they didn't retreat." Murmurs. "They reset." "That construct wasn't their apex. It was a test." He paced once, deliberately. "And we passed." A pause. Then. "But not in the way they expected." In the medical wing, Calder lay surrounded by a web of regrowth fields and monitoring drones. Tubes hissed quietly, fusing microfractures in real time. Serah sat at his side, reviewing Bureau scans. "You know what happens next," he said without opening his eyes. She sighed. "They'll want to study you. Replicate what you did. They won't find anything." She looked up. "Why?" "Because it wasn't the scream. It wasn't the chip. It was the choice." He opened his eyes. Cold steel gray. Unflinching. "I chose to feel everything they told us to bury." In the outer rim, a Centauri fleet remained idle. 30 ships. Power hulks built like mountains. None moved. Within the command vessel, High Tactician Oryx watched a simulation. It played the same moment repeatedly, Calder driving emotion like a blade. Oryx didn't blink. He didn't breathe. "Run it again." Juno approached Wren's console on the bridge. "You think they'll hit Earth directly?" she asked. "No." "Then where?" "Where we don't expect." He tapped a system on the edge of the screen, Orion's belt, near Tarluin Station. "Because that's where we store our memory cores." Juno went still. "Our Vulporn archives." Wren nodded. "And if they destroy those, we lose more than data. We lose why we fought." The decision was made. Strike first. Not with fleets. With truth. Serah unlocked the last neural seal, data buried in Calder's generation. A chronicle of humanity's worst days, the deep famines, the colony burnings, the betrayal at Elysium Rift. And the fact that humanity survived not because it was strongest, but because it refused to stop remembering. The file was transmitted. Unfiltered. Across all galactic networks. No encryption. The message was simple. You fear what we become in war. But you should fear more what made us that way. Centauri systems flooded with raw emotion. Generals fell silent. Priests screamed and tore at their flesh, memories, incompatible with their design, infecting them like fire. It wasn't propaganda. It was history. And no empire built on sterilized logic could withstand the weight of human pain shared freely. In orbit above Earth, the final Karkanin dreadnought decloaked. A relic. Black gold plating. No insignia. It opened a channel. Wren answered it personally. A single voice echoed from the ship. Gravel and ice. We once ruled alone. Your kind was scattered. Forgotten. Yet now you stand. Yes. What changed? We stopped hiding what hurt. A pause. The voice was quieter. That will make you dangerous. Wren's reply was a whisper. It makes us human. The dreadnought did not attack. It turned. And jumped away. Calder walked again 2 days later. Hera met him in the garden deck. She said nothing. He just nodded. Next wave? Soon, she said. But not today. They stood in silence. Above them, the sky held no warships. Just stars. Elsewhere, children of 20 species now studied Terran history not as myth, but as warning. Some cried. Some laughed. Some simply stared. But all remembered the message humanity gave freely. We are not conquerors. But we remember how to be monsters. Final scene. A new vault is sealed. Not to bury shame. but to protect understanding. Its name? Hope.